Pat Kenny Show. It's Anton in for Pat. As the summer approaches, people are starting to think about making plans for summer holidays. And of course, those holidays cost 3 times more in peak season, largely because of school holidays. That means children are now missing school at an increasingly higher rate. Joining me is Eoghan Corry, travel and aviation journalist, and Mark Candon, principal of St. Laurence O'Toole's Senior National Boys' School in North Dock in Dublin. Eoghan, let me start with you with the economic incentive. Give us a sense of how much you save by taking the kids out of school rather than going in school holiday time.
Well, I wouldn't phrase it as by taking the kids out of school. You got to plan. What happens is pretty raw supply and demand industry, aviation and tourism is. So the prices will be priced dynamically, and when the big demand comes on the hotel side, the prices will go up. And obviously, Ryanair have long operated this model, and Aer Lingus follow them, where the prices will go up according to when the big numbers want to travel. The outcome of that, the way that relates to school holidays, is quite interesting, a little bit more complex. It can treble. Most spectacularly, the cheapest time to travel is the first couple of weeks in December. It doesn't matter whether you're skiing or going to Son or going to Canaries. That is when everybody's concentrating on Christmas, and it's a great time to get a really good bargain. When it comes to the school holidays, the prices are up to 3 times at that stage. The summer are a little bit more complicated, and it's good for a couple of reasons, Anton. The Irish market isn't the main market in most of the countries we go to in large holiday numbers. So there is always a very, very strong peak July, very strong peak August, and then it's less apparent around those periods. So you can actually get in June and into July before the English school holidays come. England's a shorter school holiday cycle than we have. Italy is a longer one. Italy is the longest number of school holidays of any country. And if people like bringing teenagers, for instance, classic teenage holiday would be camping in France. You can get very, very good prices if your child isn't doing a leaving cert and you get out there in June. But you're absolutely no doubt, once those school holidays break, a couple of things happen. The biggest weekend at the airport, the busiest days in the airports are the beginning of those school holidays, and at the end, it crumbs up every year in the data.
Well, if that's the economic incentive, what about the academic disincentive? Mark Candon, as I said, principal of St. Laurence O'Toole's Senior Boys National School, is with us. Mark, how damaging is it in terms of educational progression of the kids if they get pulled out of school a week early?
Hi, Anton. It's like what the lotto says: if you're not in, you can't win. I never would have liked school that much myself, but actually, believe it or not, the more you're there, the better you do. So the less you miss, the better you're going to do. And I think that's actually research and statistically proven. So there you have it.
And what about from a school policy? How do you react if you discover that kids are being taken out early or out of term time for what you can, reading between the lines, see is unlikely to be sickness but is actually a holiday?
Some parents will tell you, and I mean, you're aware of this. Like, what I'd say to you, Anton, is that since COVID, maybe things, and this is the recent report from the Inspectorate basically pointed this out, that since COVID there's been this downturn in attendance and holidays that seem to be a big part of it. Now, Ireland's changed as well. We're probably richer than we ever were. After COVID, people had saved up money because they couldn't go or do anything, so people went on holidays then, and maybe the culture has changed. And so it's now in our culture sort of to take holidays maybe once, twice, maybe more than once a year, twice. Do you know what I mean? And then, as Owen said, people will then look. So it's kind of like now going on a holiday and maybe going abroad is part of what we do. And then people look for the best deal or the best time. You know what I mean? The other thing I'd say to you is we have an awful, we've a lot of people, immigrants to the country, right? Okay, I mean, if you just take Ukrainian families, we've had a number of those as well. It's not so much holidays. I mean, they've been here and they may go back. It depends to tell you, they're going back to see grandparents or whatever else. You know what I mean? So you have that as well, or you'd have children who might be with, say, international protection or whatever else. I have a child here from India who they hadn't been back in India for 4 years, so they went for 5 weeks, So all of that feeds into it. But I think the culture has changed, and I think people feel that sort of an entitlement to go to holidays, and then from a cost perspective, you're looking to get the best deal, you know. So we've never been richer, and maybe holidays and flights and stuff like that have never been cheaper. And as Owen pointed out, there are certain points of the year when it's off season where you can get a very good deal. So that seems to be what's impacting it.
Now, in theory, according to some of the texts that we're getting, the other thing that may be impacting in it is a desire to invest in the broadening of the child's mind. For example, Anton, I always took my kids out of holidays during school time. We went to see Paris, Rome, and other places where there was history and culture. I regard that as educational. There is a big difference between a holiday where kids see other cultures and places and holidays spent on a beach somewhere. It also gives children a chance to hear foreign languages spoken, something we are remarkably poor at. What of that theory, Mark?
Okay, what I'd say to you basically, Anton, is this, right? Okay, you're in school for half a day. At primary school, you go to school for half a day for half a year. The school year is a 182 at primary school. They get 172, 175 at secondary. And school days are generally roughly around 8:50 to 2:30. Okay, so you're in school half a day for half a year. Okay? You've got the other half of the day and the other half of the year to do whatever you want. So that to me, you know, is like, sure, that's great, but you can do that too. You have 2 months in the summer. You can do that during the summer. You can do it at Easter. You can do it at Christmas.
Now, Owen, do the numbers show that that is what people tend to do when they take their kids away on holidays? Are they taking them on educational tours of Paris, or are they taking them to beaches and holiday camps?
No brainer there. They're all going to the sun. 80% of our holidays, our trips out of Ireland, go to two countries, Spain and Portugal. It's back to the same resorts in many cases. There is a very strong growth in people taking trips with their children that have a cultural dimension. It tends to be more the DIY families, the ones who nomad a bit during their holidays, and camping in France, I already referenced, is generally it's infused with visits to castles, and of course the cross-cultural thing where you're meeting people from other countries, not just the French, but the other people around holidays there at the campsite. I speak with great nostalgia on this because when my girls were young, that was what basically we did every year. What is interesting, though, about the Irish school term is that you don't actually have to pluck them out of school at all. We have a couple of points where nobody else in Europe is travelling. A very good example is St. Patrick's Day last week. And another good example is the growing interest in the St. Bridget's holiday. Very, very few people travel that weekend, the very first year of it. But I can see over the next few years, people growing that, because the beginning of February, every hotelier in Europe has their hand out looking for you, and every ski resort and every sun resort and every city wants visitors, and there aren't any. So if you concentrate your getaways, and the number of trips that Irish people have taken has growing. We're now possibly the lead people for the number of trips we take a year. We used to be behind Norway in that, but it seems to have changed a little bit. We take a lot of trips abroad, shorter breaks abroad, so you don't actually have to pluck them out of school at all to get those bargains.
So if you're planning ahead then on, if we're looking at competitor markets to try to figure out who it is that's going to increase the price of flights and hotels, should we be looking at British school holidays and trying to find where ours don't match them and those gaps? Is that where the likely bargains are?
Pretty much. Britain, France, Germany, they're the big markets. They're the ones that move en masse. France, famously, the midterm in France causes havoc with prices right over Europe. But what they've done in recent years is they staggered 3 different midterm breaks 1 week in February across the length of the country, mainly because their own hoteliers and their own ski resorts were complaining. So it's really a matter of, just everything is Googleable now. If you want to find where you're going to get your best prices, start where somebody else that spends more money than the Irish and travels in greater numbers than the Irish can't go because they have school holidays. We do get reasonably long school holidays. It's longer than Britain, as I say. It's short of another few European countries. There isn't any reason to pluck your children out of school. The Long haul is a little bit more complicated. There are people, for large numbers of people from the Philippines, India, Sri Lanka, places like that, working in Ireland, and they're very often the spend on that trip is very, very high, bringing teenagers again, and that's where probably a more complicated pinch point comes.
Lastly then, Mark, from a principal's perspective, how much of a problem is it, and is there much recourse? If you discover that parents are doing this repeatedly or at a damaging length, is there much you can do?
No. Now, holidays is one aspect of, we'd say, absence. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just one aspect of it. What I would say to you is this, right? I'm much happier to see a kid, in terms of absence now, I'm not saying that I'm happy about this, right? But if a child goes for 10 school days at some point during the school term on a holiday, but is in the rest of the year, maybe misses 2 days because they're sick, okay? That's an awful lot better than a child who's missing a day every week or a day every 2 weeks, okay? Because that pattern builds up, and by the time they hit second level school, you know, that is going to impact. So if you're looking to analyse what's more recoverable from, and I'm not basically saying, oh, you should, but that would be what I would say on that. Sometimes people have genuine reasons for it. I think a lot of it is cost-based, to be quite honest with you, the going on holidays during school term. And I'll just reiterate what I said. You're in school for half a day, for half a year. Really, you know, we never got to go to the country when we were kids. You know, we got to go down to the rallies, to the relatives. So the culture changed, but I do think it does impact educational outcomes in the long term, yes.
Mark, thank you. Likewise, thank you to Eoghan. That's Mark Candon, Principal of St. Laurence O'Toole's Senior Boys National School in North Dock, and Eoghan Corry, travel and aviation journalist, text saying, Anton, in the UK, parents are fined if they take their children out of school in term time. My own niece with 5 children was fined over £600